And it's cup action this weekend. There are some domestic fixtures as well, but the FA Cup quarter-finals, the top three sides in the Canada Life Premier League are in FA Cup action. Peel at home to Douglas Athletic. Corinthians travel to the Bowl for a match against St Mary's, and Braddon host St George's. Tony Mepham, which is your game of the day there? Because all three ties are quite tasty.
They're quite tasty, but I think two of them, there's quite a clear favourite in it. Looking at the FA Cup, Peel against Douglas Athletic. Douglas Athletic lost recently to Ramsey, which was a bit of a surprise. Also, Brian Gartland stood down as their manager, so I'm not too sure who's taken it at the moment.
Well, I can tell you, yep. I think Craig Purvis has taken over from Brian Gartland, and as you say, he resigned after the defeat to Ramsey the other week.
Yeah, and I couldn't really understand. I spoke to Brian midweek after that defeat, and he had a few words to say just about football in general. And I just said to Brian, "You've done a great job here with this club. Why don't you just stay to the end of the season? And if it's not doing it for you, then go." They're not going to be relegated, but I just feel that there's a little bit more from Brian. This for the remainder of this year would have just really cemented everything for them, because I think they've done really well, Douglas Athletic, because it's a tough old league to stay in. I think he maybe just lost a bit of heart. He said a couple of things to me and how he felt, and to me that's not a reason to go, but whatever. He's chose to do it. And yeah, I saw Craig down there last night with Adam Watterson. I wasn't too sure. I saw the two of them pulling the strings, who was going to be in charge, and he's done a good job, Craig, with the women. He's very enthusiastic, and let's just hope that they can continue building on what they've sort of set on 3 or 4 years ago, which is incredibly well.
It's a baptism of fire for Craig Purvis, though, away at Peel. Peel have been doing incredibly well in the league. Not been doing too bad in the Cup either. They're in the quarter-finals. They're favourites, obviously, for this one to book their place in the semis.
Definitely, and I watched Peel recently against St George's, and they didn't turn up at Glencountry Road, and Geordies were a bit slow in the first half, but in the second half got it right, and I'm sure Steve Faulkner will be looking to correct that one. They've got good players in there. We know who's going to be the threats. I still feel, and I've harped on it a couple of times, I'll just say it once, he's unsure of who to play up front. I think that's the problem. He's got great delivery left, right. Midfield works so hard. Defence is strong. But it's just up front. You've got to score goals if you're going to win games. And, Lee Gale can't do it on his own. And he just needs a strike partner, because, Lee put some superb balls into that centre area, and it's got to be finished. So we'll wait and see what his team uses tomorrow. I know there's one or two that are missing. I think a couple have gone skiing. But I've got to go for Peel as favourites in this one. And I think Douglas Athletic will just find it too tough. It's a great pitch to play on, Douglas Road. I know we've got some real bad weather coming in tomorrow, but hopefully it'll hold together and we'll get this game on.
I do want to come back to Douglas Athletic in a second, but let's cover the rest of the FA Cup quarter-final ties that take place tomorrow. St Mary's host Corinthians. That's arguably the closest of all the ties in the last 8. Can St Mary's cause an upset? It would be a small upset, I think, but they've got to have confidence going into this one. And Corinthians, though, top of the league, is there a chance they may take their eye off the ball?
I don't think Corinthians will take their eye off the ball, but I know Corinthians are full aware of what's coming in tomorrow afternoon from St Mary's team. They've improved so much. I think Alex Harrison's done a great job since he's taken over, and to be able to concentrate on his own game and also sort of concentrate on football matters on the pitch, he's done really well. And he gets a little bit of assistance from the sideline, but I think Stephen Priestnall's been in great form. When you've got Alex Harrison, whether he's midfielder at the back, you've got Carl Clark in there as well, and then you've got Tommy Johnson left-hand side, and then all the others as well. It's going to be a tough game for Corinthians, and it's going to be a tough game for St Mary's. It's the standout game by far. History this season, it's been a little bit sort of shared, and I think Danny McMahon's troops will just get it right. I really do. A big pitch will suit them the way they play. They've got some real big players there. Sean Doyle. You've got Danny Simpson on that left-hand side. Defensively, Tom Smith and Cameron Lee have done a great job. New partnership when they lost Chris Cannell early on in the season. Be interested to see where he plays Tom Collister. Does he play him in midfield? Does he play him at right back? If it was me, I'd possibly plump for the midfield. I like his work rate, and it just seems to complement Conor Gorman in there as well. But down right-hand side, you've got the strength of Ryan Burns. And Steve Whitley's been in great form. And if there's any free kicks around that box, then there's a good chance he's going to score because he's got that sweet left peg. And Darren Kane's experienced left-hand side, Adam Killier in goal. I think I've near enough covered everyone there. And then when you throw in that as well, you've got people like Phil Kelly can come in, Luke Murray. You know, there's a really good team there. But I just think both teams have got to be careful. Anyone can win this one. But as I say, I'm just going to edge it towards the Whites, which you won't be surprised about, really, will you?
Well, they've only lost 2 games at the Bowl this season to St Mary's. But it is an interesting point. Would Corinthians rather focus on the league at this juncture and kind of neglect the club? They have the cup, prioritise the league because they are top by 3 points, as we know.
Yeah.
If St George's win their games in hand, they go top. They're also in cup action, but do you think Corinthians will prioritise the league, or do you think that doesn't make a blind bit of difference?
Doesn't make a blind bit of difference. I think they'll just take whatever comes. I don't think they've got any high almighties about themselves. They know to win that league is going to have to be something special for the remainder of the season. When you look at the fixtures they've got to come, they've got Geordies to play twice, they've got Russian to play twice. Russian tomorrow, if they win, go a point behind them. They'll have played a game more, I think. I'll check on that one. But the Geordies home and away is going to be tough, and the Russian game they play next week, and then they've got another rearranged one. So they've just concentrated on what's in front of them. It's a big team building at Corinthians, and I just feel tomorrow if they could dispose of St Mary's, whoever's going to get through to the semi-final. St John's are already there after that great result midweek. I think Peel will be there, and I think St George's will be there. So if you've got Corinthians or St Mary's and St John's put in the hat, that's 2 great semi-finals, and looking forward to them. And they'll be played on the 24th of March.
Yes, Braddon versus St George's is the final FA Cup quarter-final, and no prizes for guessing who Tony favours to progress in that one.
And a little bit of news on that one as well. I think Braddon are missing quite a few players. There's about 18 of them going on a skiing trip. I think they leave tomorrow. And I know people like Chris Kane are missing, the O'Neill boys are missing, and that won't help Braddon's cause, because I've watched them midweek when they played Ramsey a couple of weeks ago, and they're not there at the races, Braddon, and I think it's got to be a huge game for them against Ramsey in the league if they're going to stay up. And I think tomorrow, St George's will just take them apart. It's a horrible thing to say. I know it's a tighter pitch, but that didn't stop St George's early on in the season scoring, something like 11 or 12 might have been more goals against Douglas Athletic. They can play on whatever pitch is in front of them. With the players coming back, Johnny Myers is back in and looking good. You've got Chris Bass in there as well. There was talk of maybe Callum Morrissey coming back into training, but I'm not too sure. Kieran McNulty up front. And then you've got the pace of people like Joey Morlin, Sam Kane on that right-hand side, a nightmare. And the defence is so strong. So I just expect St George to be too strong for Braddon. And I'm not too sure what quality they're going to have out, because Braddon have already this evening cancelled their combination game tomorrow against Corinthians due to lack of players, so it does look as if they've been decimated by the skiing trip.
Well, I think going out of the FA Cup will be the least of their concerns, because they are second from bottom. Ramsey are in domestic action tomorrow. If they beat 6th place St John's, they'll be level on points. It really does spice up the survival scrap.
Definitely, and I think Ramsey, it's doable tomorrow. I know a few people will be saying to me, are you off your head or what? But looking at St John's, I know there's 4 key players missing tomorrow that won't help St John's cause. OK, you can bring some other players in, but I've been pleasantly surprised with Ramsey over the last couple of games. The Douglas Athletic result, the performance against, I'm trying to remember who they played now, St Mary's last week, where they only lost 4-2. And also the game against Braddon in the Cup, which they should have won. So whatever has happened to Ramsey over the last month, let's have a little bit more, because I've seen enough there from them young players. If they can stay together, then they could stay up in this league, and then hopefully next year build, because it'd be nice to see one of the top flights sides, or should I say one of the northern sides in the top flight. When you look at Ayr struggling a little bit, Ramsey Youth Centre, I think they're going to miss out on promotion. And when you look at Ramsey, they're having a battle for every single point. It's good, and I think it's given them a big lift, and I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe sneak something out of that result tomorrow against St John's. But St John's midweek, did really well against Castletown. It was tight at half-time 1-1, but then came out 6-2 winners, and some beauty goals in there with Reece Oates and Paul Whitehead. They finished well.
I was going to ask you whether the change in manager could drag Douglas Athletic back into the relegation dogfight, but I don't have time because we're heading towards the news at 6.